Hello buddy, yeah, it's Wyvern here with another bit of Total War Warhammer 2 quick match gameplay. This time around we are on Bleak Coast playing as the High Elves against the force of the Greenskins. And this time around, rather doing a sort of more competitive chariot and Alariel and Dragon Prince heavy build, I decided to do something a little silly and go for an Alariel themed build. And so for our Lord here, we are running with Alariel. Definitely, this isn't necessarily the most competitive build, but that's looking to have a bit of fun. We have Alariel the Radiant. She's only got Earthblood and Frost Protection. Obviously not going full troll mode with just Banishment or something. We do have Shield Safri, Life Bloom, as well as the Boon of Isha for that magic damage and immune psychology. Arcane Conduit, as well as Star Avalorn. In hindsight, I probably should have gotten the physical resist shield stone over Boon of Isha, but hey, what can you do? Alongside her, because we are theming this about Alariel, we do have two, not one, but two handmaidens of the Everqueen. These ladies, not necessarily my favorite heroes in the game, definitely. Now, they do have very good stats in melee. The problem is that they don't have AP like nobles, and they don't have good armor like nobles, which makes them a little bit subpar in my opinion. That said, they do have pretty nifty ranged attacks. You can see they do 125 AP damage per shot. Granted, these don't home in the way that, say, a Waystalker's shots do, but they can definitely dish out some hurt, and I figured, you know, let's so we can kite and sort of work my opponent down over time, and they'll hopefully do some work, and they will give us the AP we need to deal with, say, Ragnaroks or Blackorks. Besides that, of course, you can't have Alariel without the Sisters of Avalorn, so we do have 3 units of them. One of them is the Everqueen's Court Guard. Probably a somewhat overpriced and underpowered Regiment of Renown. Granted, of course, they've got some monster stats with Martial Prowess, some very good rate of fire, very high damage output, but ultimately this is a very expensive 1400 gold unit, and the only thing you really get out of it besides the stats is Banner of Avalorn, which gives some extra power recharge. Besides that, to protect them against light trash, we do have a bunch of Leader Reavers, 4 units of them, as well as Leader Reaver Archers and the Heralds of the Wind in the back. So, going very light and sort of just defending with Leader Reavers. I figured 2 Spears, which is basically the same thing as 2 Leader Reavers or 4 Spears, just wouldn't cover me, especially against Goblin Lightcap. Now, for my opponent, he did decide to go a little bit memey himself. He does have 2 Goblin Wolf Chariots here, as well as a horde of Night Goblins to protect his front line here. There are also 3 Black Orcs anchoring things in case I'd gone with more elite infantry. 2 Doomdiver Catapults who are devastating in this match and are going to be terrifying against my build because I really don't have anything to shut them down. Normally a Bolt Thrower or honestly Heavy Cat is much more resilient against them, especially Dragon Princes with their physical resist. But against Sisters, this is going to be disgusting. They're going to be able to melt them quick. There are some nasty Skulkers in the mix as well. The Moon Howlers, as well as multiple units of Spider Riders. So things are definitely not looking ideal. Now we do have our Handmaidens of the Everqueen charging out here, going after these Goblin Wolf Chariots, but honestly this is kind of a situation you don't want to be taking. You don't want to be slugging it out with Goblin Wolf Chariots. And although we do some damage there, we're going to back off fairly quickly. In the meantime, over here on the flank, first Goblin Spider Riders engaging on the being engaged upon by the Elite Reavers. Unfortunately, my opponent counter-engaged there with Azag as well as Moon Howlers, which is going to be pretty nasty. And you can see immediately these bad boys are tanking. Soulblight goes down. Azag has Soulblight and Spirit Leech, by the way. So we're going to dive in with our Phoenix, looking to do some damage, looking to perhaps tear out some boys. Lariel is kind of sitting around on the edges here. Perhaps should have cast it immediately, but I just did not. In the meantime, the Chariots are charging, but we do have our Elite Reavers on standby. We're going to get our Handmaidens of the Everqueen in here to tie these Chariots down. These Chariots never make it into combat. They are caught and destroyed by the Heralds of the Wind. Definitely a good little catch there. Unfortunately, on the flank here, things are going a lot worse. And my opponent's Night Goblins are starting to push into my line. Wall goes off, and things are going to get very hairy. Unfortunately for my opponent, though, Azag is kind of trapped down here and getting plastered by the Sisters of Avalorn. Sure, he's got some pretty good armor, or pretty good missile resist, I think 45%, but 70 armor is not going to cut it. And so he's going to get dumpstered there. In the meantime, though, Doomdiver's shredding my Everqueen's Court Guard and my Sisters of Avalorn, so that's really devastating stuff. You can see Goblin Fanatics going out there. I guess some of these guys were Fanatics. These guys are Fanatics over there. They're not even the Regiment around, which is surprising. You don't see Fanatics all that often. There's actually 2 units of them. That said, Azag is getting completely dumpstered. He does trade pretty well with the Flamespire Phoenix, drops it with the Spirit Leech there. Alariel does get on top of him, but there are nasty Skulkers in the way who are slowing her down, preventing her from escaping. And my Phoenix there barely scrapes away with his life. So definitely some rough stuff. Elsewhere in the meantime, these poor Leader Reavers are trying to escape and extricate themselves. Over here, these Leader Reavers getting snared by a Smoke Bomb and run down by Blackorks. So all in all, this battle is going disastrously for me. A lot of micro slip-ups have kind of screwed me over. My Leader Reavers got thrown away to protect the Sisters of Avalorn, who are now getting destroyed anyway. There's only 1 unit really online at this stage, and we're not able to outrun the Goblins because they do have poison. So things definitely not looking ideal. Azag in the meantime kind of loitering in the back. Alariel sitting tight here. Because I didn't bring, say, Arcane Unforging, I couldn't snipe Azag with that. So that's definitely some rough stuff. In the meantime, these Night Goblins here really harassing these Sisters of Avalon, doing quite a bit of hurt. And things are not looking ideal. Over here, the Everqueen scorecard are basically goners. They're down to 5 models and getting overrun by Night Goblins. They actually either shatter or die there. I'm not entirely sure which of the two. But the Night Goblins definitely paying their dues here. I had expected my opponent to go a bit more elite, and it just didn't happen. So these Night Goblins are having a field day. And over here, the Heralds of the Wind getting charged and destroyed by these Goblin Wolf Chariots. So probably one of the saddest engagements you're ever going to see. Goblin Wolf Chariots versus the Leader Maneuvers, but hey, it is what it is. In the meantime, we are kind of blobbing and trying to take down my opponent's troops one by one. Over here, we cast a False Protection and Star of Avalorn on the Sister of Avalorn, which will make them fight a lot better. Drop a Flamespire Phoenix in there, and in come the Terror Bombs. In the meantime, our peripheral cav is able to juke around and start picking these enemies off. Now, obviously, these Sisters still have 42 models. Now, they're going to get pounded by the Doom Divers, unfortunately. And I've got nothing to shut them down. But, things definitely not looking as bad as all that. Unfortunately, the Flamespire Phoenix here actually lands outside of the Star AoE, so it's not getting the heals, which is really, really crappy. But all the Universe doing some good work, sort of chipping down these Night Goblins. Unfortunately, 3 units of Black Rogues are still very much alive and very much ready to be a pain in the rear. So that's going to be a bit of an issue. Now, as you can see, Balance of Power is pretty decisively on my favor at this point, about 66% or so in my opponent's favor. My Sisters of Avalorn, last effective unit here, firing into the Black Rogues, trying to whittle them down, because I realize these guys are going to be an absolute pain. I have nothing to deal with them, really. So we're going to try to do as much damage as we can here. Unfortunately, there's still 2 more units that are basically full health, so that's going to be pretty brutal to deal with. That said, we are running off the Goblins. So this is one nice little thing. We've got a lot of mobility. My opponent has basically lost all of his mobility. He does hit my Flamespire Phoenix here with the Spirit Leech as it's coming in against him. I do believe we're Earthblooded just shortly before. It's going to engage here on Azag. Azag not very good in melee, as we discussed in a recent video. And we actually luck out in the RNG department here and get our full heal. Now this is just brutal for my opponent, because he was sort of gambling on the fact that he'd snipe out my Phoenix here, and it didn't happen. That 50% swung my favor, and all of a sudden things are looking a lot brighter, because my Flamespire Phoenix just healed to full. He's pursuing Azag here, doing quite the number on him, and Azag isn't really able to escape. Granted, he does have the same speed, I think, as a Phoenix. Oh, he's actually slower. The Flamespire Phoenix is 120 speed, which I didn't realize. But we're able to get on top of Azag and beat the snot out of him. In the meantime, here in the pits, things are looking bad for our Leader Nevers, but it does allow our Sisters to continue firing, pew-pewing away, although that fire from the Doom Divers has done a number on them. It's really been pretty nasty. Elsewhere, Alariel is running off these chariots, helping the Leader Nevers do cleanup in Aisle 9, which is huge. And of course, as we remove Azag here, that's going to be a huge win for us. And the reason is that once Azag is gone, we are then going to be able to start terror routing a lot of these troops. Now, obviously, Black Rogues have immune psychology, but if we can remove units like the Night Goblins, like the Nasty Skulkers, units like that, we can then isolate the Black Rogues and really tear them apart. So at this point, it is a little bit of Benny Hill action. You can see, unfortunately, one Handmaiden gets caught here in a circle of Black Rogues, which is pretty brutal, so we hit her with False Protection. Doom Diver, in the meantime, tearing into my poor Sisters. They're really not able to just escape it. They're getting torn to shreds. So they're just going to keep running from these annoying Skulkers, who are doing a lot of hurt, though fortunately getting friendly fired there. In the meantime, over here in the back, Phoenix does catch and chase off Azag, which is going to remove him from play and open up the opportunity to then sort of start terror-outing stuff. So at this point, you can see the Leader Nevers here doing their very best to remove this Goblin crew, but at this point, they're so badly mauled that they're not able to efficiently kill the crewmen, which is pretty sad. The moment your Leader Nevers are actually routing to a Goblin artillery crew, you know things are going south. Over here, the Flamespire Phoenix does dive in on the Doom Divers, and you know it does some work. It immediately terror routs them, which is huge, and their leadership completely snaps. You can see down to 40s. This triggers a chain route, so this Doom Diver also flees, so that's a big win for us. Suddenly Balance of Power is looking a little better. It's about 60-40 now. Alariel does get caught out by the Night Goblins here, but the Sisters of Avalorn pull out the swords and dive into the rear, so these guys are going to start getting flanked. They're going to start taking that penalty for being flanked, and hopefully that will buckle their leadership relatively quickly. In the meantime, our Handmaiden is managing to extricate herself, which is a big win for us, and our Leader Nevers are running off the cap, so this is very important. My opponent has essentially lost all of his elites, or all of his cheap trash, so now he's just down to his elite Black Rogues, and we do still have the opportunity to remove these Night Goblins, but after that it's just going to be an issue of can we take down Black Rogues. because everything else is basically gone. You can see we're going to use Alariel here to chase off the Night Goblin. It's going to be a little bit of fast forwarding here because it's just a lot of cleanup on my part, and I sort of run away from my opponent. At the stage we were actually talking, he's like, don't draw at me, please. And I had no intention of doing that, but I was definitely going to try to get a win here. And for that, I want to use up all my ammo. I still have a good chunk over here, 9 rounds on this 18 model unit. I still had 19 rounds on this 8 model unit, so I hadn't really gotten much ammo out of my sisters. And I wanted to use every bit of it. Now, these guys, unfortunately, do shatter, so that is what it is. We are able to isolate and knock down these Night Goblins. You can see the Flamespire Phoenix diving in there from the front. Unit of Leader Reavers comes in from the back, despite the Fanatics being thrown out at them. And they're going to be able to break these guys pretty quick. And they shatter. So, that is definitely a nice little pick there. Over here, the Leader Reavers chased off the Spider Riders. Now things are looking a little brighter. Our handmaidens still have some ammo, 8 and 10, so they're going to be able to unload on these Black Orcs, and we're going to sort of start closing in on them. These Black Orcs are the last sort of bastion, and these have a lot of HP. Fast forwarding here, obviously we're kind of trying to close the distance. I told my opponent I want to use up all my ammo. I just said it straight up. And at this point, he said he kind of figured probably best to go hide in the woods. So it makes sense. Both of us at this point are just trying to do what we can to win. He wants to obviously keep his Black Orcs in the best shape he can. They've obviously suffered the leadership loss from the loss of Azak, so they're trying to sort of stay alive. And if obviously they can't be terrorized by the Phoenix, so that is a big boon for my opponent. And if they hide in the woods, cycle charging will be very difficult. So that's definitely going to be tough. And these guys are meatbags. They've got a lot of HP, 6,400, 6,700. These guys, even the beat up Black Orcs, at 5,000 HP still. My army probably doesn't have 6,000 HP between literally every unit on the field, maybe just barely over. So it's a lot of meat to cut through. Regardless, we are going to close in here on my opponent. You can't see my Leader Reavers trying to regroup. I'm going to take Alariel, swing around the flank here, looking to get one last big heal. Trying to still use up my ammo, but my opponent hiding in the trees here is making it a little difficult. And I don't actually think the sisters always kill Black Orcs in a single shot, or the handmaidens, sorry. I think Black Orcs actually have enough HP to where if their armor holds out, or if they roll well on the armor save, they can tank. So that's a little rough. And at this point, we do cast a Star of Avalorn. We're going to heal up our ladies as best we can. So Alariel's sitting here with a glorious goon squad as they ride out to death or glory. And obviously, I could have waited a little bit longer, but I didn't. And so we're going to dive in here. We are going into melee, and this is where the Flamespire Phoenix, still having its bombs, is going to be clutch. We were able to bomb those Black Orcs, and it's doing quite a bit of hurt here. If we watch here as the bombs drop, these guys lose about 300 HP. These guys losing a couple hundred as well. We're going to see how many more bombs how many more flame poops we get from our Phoenix. So you can see another 300 or so. It's doing about 300 a bomb. So with the fact that we had about 8 bombs left at this point, it's a lot of potential damage. And we are now able to dive in with our Leader Reavers, looking to get those rear charges. You can see Foss protection goes down, keeping all of my troops in the fight. And in goes Alariel, in goes her handmaidens. And handmaidens have some pretty monster stats. They're not the best unit in the sense of just doing straight up damage, because they don't have AP. They obviously don't have the greatest melee attack, and bonus restart isn't applicable here. But they're able to do quite a bit of hurt. Unfortunately, the Leader Reavers just shattering off the field at this point. What can you expect? They're just buckling. And so the last thing we're going to be doing here is cycle charging in and out with the Phoenix, because it's got high AP values. It does have a respectable charge bonus of 40, and especially that AP is critical here to start breaking these Black Orcs. We managed to take one unit off the field, and suddenly Bounce of Power is swinging wildly in my favor. But it's still potentially fake news. There is still about 8,000 HP worth of Orc HP on the field here. They surround. I'm basically out of wounds magic. If they surround and beat down Alariel and our handmaidens here, it's going to be game over. And Alariel is taking a hurt, quite a hurt here. She's down to 55 melee defense, getting surrounded. Of course, this is one of the things where Greenskins start falling off. When they don't have support, when they don't have magical support or WA, their stats are just not the best. So they are going to be struggling to hit, especially the handmaidens with their 64 melee defense while they're above martial prowess levels. It's very, very difficult. The Flamespire Phoenix doing its best here, sort of floating around and, yeah, dumpstering those Black Orcs. As you can see, they are dropping relatively quickly, definitely quicker than my ladies are dropping. We do get another Frost Protection there, which will make us pretty tanky and does provide us with a minimal heal because, of course, we do have Life Bloom, so that's nice. Unfortunately, the Reavers are basically gone, which meant we weren't able to remove these ratted Black Orcs in the field. So they do rally and come back. You can see with that, the Bounce of Power is actually swinging back in my opponent's favor a little bit. So definitely very back and forth game over here. The Flamespire is going to dive in on these Black Orcs, looking to disrupt them, looking to do some work. And at this point, it is simply a fight to the finish. We can watch here as the Everqueen is trying to flee. I was at this point trying to save her. I'm like, I don't want to lose my leadership because that will end this. Potentially we can still win. Just coated in blood here. The handmaidens of the Everqueen fighting tooth and nail to protect their lady. And they are doing a pretty darn good job crushing these black orcs. Each black orc is like the size of a handmaiden. It's pretty nuts. Handmaiden on a horse, that is. In comes the Flamespire Phoenix again, just crushing these guys. It's such a crazy looking beastie there. But it is doing a lot of hurt, destroying these black orcs. And zooming out here, we can see that it is basically game over. This last handmaiden, we did lose a handmaiden in the pit fight there, but this handmaiden over here isn't, or actually, well, she routed, but she's done 200 HP, so she's not really coming back. But this handmaiden is still very healthy. The Flamespire still has 800 HP and is able to cycle charge, and that is going to be all she wrote. You can see Alariel here scraping away with 290 HP, so definitely rough stuff. But the super healthy handmaiden at this point is just propping up this balance of power incredibly well. Flamespire Phoenix takes a bit of a hurt every time it jumps in, but it does do a lot here, and my opponent's army finally does shatter to army losses. So a very tight victory for the High Elves, and very well played to Melon Gamer. Great match. This is one of the few times I almost feel bad for winning it, because it really did come down to RNG, I think. Granted, I could have sat tight and healed my Phoenix, so maybe not entirely, but the fact that my Phoenix got its heal off was huge. That allowed me to use it to get rid of Azag, and then in the late game meant it could cycle charge those Black Orcs. It is one thing I kind of wish was changed about the Phoenix. Even if the heal was like halved, I wish the Phoenix would get a guaranteed heal. Same thing with the Help It Abomination, with it's too horrible to die. Now, obviously, this wasn't the most competitive build. If you're trying to fight Black Orcs or Orcs, I don't think Handmaidens are really worth it. Granted, they've shown pretty well here, but I think Nobles on Chariots are a much better choice. Alariel's great, but I usually would like to bring her on an Eagle. I think it's just better. And to be honest, I don't think Sister of Avalon are that good here. I think you're generally going to be better off with like a bunch of Fireborn and the Legion Reavers and going super wide with Cavalry. Just massive cav. Obviously, I wanted to theme it here, as I mentioned in the intro. So double Handmaidens, triple Sister of Avalon. But from a practical perspective, obviously Doom Divers are a big threat. It's relatively easy to shut down your Sister of Avalon with light cav. Granted, your opponent might not kill them, but it's relatively easy to shut them down, especially with lots of chaff just overwhelming you, like Night Goblins here. It can be very difficult to defend against. And had I gone with Spears, I don't think it would have really helped me, because had I swapped all these Legion Reavers out for Spears, I would have then not had the tools to defend against the cav. If I'd gone with the Legion Reavers like I did here, I just didn't have enough tools to cover against all the infantry and all of the cav. So it's just a sort of a mad, crappy build. But we did manage to pull it out in the end. So definitely was a lot of fun. Alariel, of course, playing clutch with the Frost Protection and the Earthblood, always useful. For my opponent's build, I think there's some meminess here, like the Goblin Wolf Cherry and the Fanatics. Definitely props for going with that, but I actually think it's a pretty competitive build besides that. Night Goblin Fanatics, I think, could use a tweak to make the Fanatics easier to use. Granted, with just two of them, it's a little easier to micro it, but like still, they're a tough unit, I think, to use. And my opponent actually got some value out of him this game, so that is well played. And Goblin Wolf Chariots didn't get much done, but definitely cool to see some of these units. I do think the builds were both a little bit memey like that. Unfortunately, Azag just getting sniped, I think, was huge, because that then gave me a leadership benefit, and I was able to use the Flamespire Phoenix to just rout so much of this trash. But yeah, we'll play to my opponent. I hope you guys enjoyed. Hope you found it entertaining. Just look at the massacre, 47 to 342 at the end. Just insane stuff. If you like this, if you enjoyed it, be sure to leave a like, subscribe, share. If you have any comments, any criticism, any questions, don't hesitate to post them. I'll do my best to respond as soon as I can. I do thank you all for watching, and I will see you all in the next one. Wyvern out.